Hello friends, my name is Jimbo Ivy, and on behalf of the City of Corvallis Parks and Recreation Department, I'd like to welcome you to the virtual cornucopia of Zoom entertainment that we loosely refer to as Quarantainment at the Majestic Theater. Whether you're here for Majestic Piece Theater, Friday Night Funny, or our Sunday Playwriting Showcase, I'd like to thank you for helping keep our performers, writers, and technicians engaged with your patronage of these free performances. Since the pandemic began, we've had dozens of these performances, and they represent hundreds of hours of work by hundreds of volunteers and staff in very challenging circumstances. A pandemic, a racial justice revolution, conflagrations, a seemingly endless string of tragedies, and yet they come back every week to bring their passions to our community. Why? Because they are majestic. And so are you. And we need your help to keep the show going during this bizarre year of 2020. In order for the Majestic to keep arts and culture alive in our community, we need you. We need you to keep coming to our free shows, but also we need you to buy tickets to our live-streamed paid performances. We have such shows planned for every month through the end of our season, but without your support, we won't be able to make them or continue to support our free content. With our Pick What You Pay model, you can pay as little as $10 to see them, or if you can, pay as much as you like. We need you to share with your friends and family how much you enjoy these shows and encourage them to catch the next performance and the one after that. And for those of you that are able, please consider donating to the Majestic now or during our holiday donation drive. Because of reduced revenues, we have cut our staffing and spending to the bone, but we still have a donation goal of $100,000 to hit this year to make it. So, if you can give, please give. We have struggled before at the Majestic, as all arts venues do, but now is the time, my friends. Now is when we need you the most. And we'll make it. Why? Because we, all of us together, are majestic.
Obviously, the play is electrifying. All of the language is delicious to say. The epigrams, the witticisms, and of course, being able to cut somebody's heart out in the most polite way possible is extremely appealing.
I think that my favorite part of the production was how much fun we all had with the cast and the director and our fantastic crew. We just had a blast at every rehearsal and every performance.
It was a blast to be part of the show. It was also meant a lot because of our director, Bernadette. Bernadette had not directed a show, but I'd always seen her being part of this show and part of that show and being an assistant director. And then suddenly here she is, the director.
When Bernadette asked me to be her lighting designer for this amazing show, I was so honored and excited about it. And then I saw the set and how amazingly humongous it is. And I saw the costumes are so gorgeous and the colors of the fabric and the diverse cast and all their wonderful, beautiful skin tones.
For me. And then the Majestic did not disappoint. We had amazing costumes. You know, I felt really glamorous, and I thought everybody else just looked like a bunch of glittering birds. And the set was really great. The music was just, Bernadette did such a good job putting it all together. So as my first performance at the Majestic, it was a good way to start.
In those beautiful, beautiful sets, and in those gorgeous costumes. And I hope that you all enjoy it as much as we did putting it together.
And then I was instantly terrified. How will I light everything so that it's alive and vibrant and healthy looking and just bring the gorgeousness, the true gorgeousness of this show? And how do I program a sunrise? And you'll see it there. But I did it, and with the help of Arlen Love and Calvin Phipps, it was an amazing show. It's still amazing, and I hope you enjoy it.
At one point, we're all supposed to come back on stage, and all I can recall is that we're all just stuck in this tiny corner of backstage. We can't go anywhere because we need to go right back on. But as you know, if everyone sits in the same area, you want to talk to each other, so we're all like, oh, quiet. Like half the time we want to be very quiet, and the other half of the time we want to tell the funniest joke ever so everyone laughs, but at the same time we can't. So, and that is certainly something that occurs with every actor backstage. They're going to be like, oh, I just want to laugh. I just want to shout with excitement because this is so much fun. And it's the one time you can't.
One other thing I wanted to say real quickly was it happened that this production of An Ideal Husband was going on during the Kavanaugh hearings. And so a plot about a politician with a secret in his past coming back to haunt him when everything was going so great was so relevant. I remember several performances where people in the audience would audibly gasp at some of the lines. And I remember being asked by people, did you guys add that line or change that? And the answer was no. That I guess politicians in the 1880s had just as many skeletons in their closets as they do now.
We put together a director's gift, that is. All the actors got together and said, let's make a gift for the director. And we ended up deciding on a game of Clue, the famous like who murdered what with what game. Only we decided to substitute in for all the various colonels and Mrs. and Misters, substitute in the characters from An Ideal Husband.
Hello, Majestic family. My name is Bernadette Bascom, and I had the honor to direct An Ideal Husband in 2018. Hello to my ideal family. I miss you so much. What an honor it is to rewatch your production tonight. Ideal Husband was the last show I got to work on at the Majestic, and the last show I got to work on before I moved away from Corvallis, so this show holds a dear place in my heart. And I think it's an important reminder of how art does survive the test of time. This show was written over 100 years ago, and it still holds such relevance. It still makes people laugh. It is still a beautiful production. While it's easy to get lost and feel swallowed up by the grief that we are feeling for the arts, for theater, for our entire industry during this pandemic, it is still important to remember that 100 years from now, the people that come after us will refer to what we did in 2020. So it's important to keep going. Theater and art survives. And I thank the Majestic Theater for what they are doing for the community of Corvallis and vice versa. And if this show does teach us anything, it's the importance of making each other laugh. So enjoy, and I send all of my love to the Majestic Theater. Mwah.
parties tonight, Olivia?
I suppose so. Are you?
Yes. Horribly tedious parties they give, don't they?
Horribly tedious. I never know why I go. Never know why I go anywhere.
I come here to be educated.
Oh, I hate being educated.
So do I. It puts one almost on a level with the commercial classes. Doesn't it? But dear Gertrude Chiltern is always telling me that I should find some serious purpose in life. So I come here to try and find one.
Well, I don't see anyone here tonight whom one could possibly call a serious purpose. The man who took me in spoke to me about his wife the entire time.
How very trivial of him.
Terribly trivial. What did your man talk about?
About myself.
And were you interested?
Not in the smallest degree.
Such martyrs we are, dear Margaret.
And how well it becomes us, Olivia.
Lord Caversham! Ah, good evening, Lady Chiltern. Tell me, has my good-for-nothing young son been here?
I don't think Lord Goring has arrived yet. Why do you call Lord Goring good for nothing, Lord Caversham?
Oh, because he leads such an idle life.
How can you say such a thing? Why, he rides at the row at 10 o'clock in the morning. He goes to the opera 3 times a week. He changes his clothes at least 5 times a day, and he dines out every night of the season. You don't call that leading an idle life, do you?
You are a very charming young lady.
That's sweet of you to say that, Lord Caversham. Do come to us more often. You know we're always at home on Wednesdays, and you look so well with your star.
Never go anywhere now. Sick of London society. Shouldn't mind being introduced to my own tailor. He always votes the right way. Oh, but strongly object to being sent down to dinner with my wife's milliner. Never could stand Lady Caversham's bonnets.
Oh, I love London society. I think it is immensely improved. It is entirely composed now with beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics. Just what society should be.
Yes, but which is Goring, a beautiful idiot or the other thing?
I have been obliged, for the present, to put Lord Goring into a class quite by himself. But he is developing charmingly.
Into what?
I hope to let you know very soon, Lord Caversham.
Lady Markby, Mrs. Cheveley.
Good evening, dear Gertrude. So kind of you to let me bring my friend, Mrs. Cheveley. 2 such charming women should know each other.
I think Mrs. Cheveley and I have met before. I did not realize she'd married a second time.
Nowadays people marry as often as they can, don't they? It is most fashionable. Dear Duchess. Lady Markby. And how is the Duke? A brain still weak, I suppose? Well, that is only to be expected, is it not? His poor father was just the same.
But have we really met before, Lady Chiltern? I can't remember where. I've been out of England for so long.
We were at school together, Mrs. Cheveley.
Indeed. I've forgotten all about my school days. I have a vague impression that they were detestable. I am not surprised. Do you know, I'm quite looking forward to meeting your clever husband. Since he's been at the Foreign Office, he's been so much talked of in Vienna. They actually succeed in spelling his name right in the newspapers. That in itself is fame on the continent.
I hardly think there'll be much in common between you and my husband, Mrs. Cheveley.
Vicomte de Nonchoc!
Ah, cher madame. Quelle surprise! I have not seen you since Berlin.
Not since Berlin, Vicomte. 5 years ago.
And you are more younger and beautiful than ever. How do you do it?
By making it a rule only to talk to perfectly charming people like yourself.
You flatter me. You butter me, as they say. Huh?
Do they say that here? How dreadful of them.
Oh, yes. They have a wonderful language. It should be more widely known.
Chiltern!
Lord Cap. Good evening, Lady Markby. I hope you've brought Sir John with you.
Oh, I have brought somebody much more charming than Sir John. Sir John's temper, since he has taken seriously to politics, has become quite unbearable. Really, now that the house is trying to become useful, it has a great deal of harm.
I hope not, Lady Markby. At any rate, we do our best to waste the public time, don't we? But who is this charming person you've been kind enough to bring tonight?
Her name is Mrs. Cheveley. One of the Dorsetshire Cheveleys, I suppose, but I don't really know. Families are so mixed nowadays. Indeed, as a rule, everybody turns out to be somebody else.
Mrs. Cheveley? I seem to know the name.
She has just arrived from Vienna.
Ah, yes, I think I know whom you mean.
She goes everywhere there and has such pleasant scandals about all of her friends. I really must go to Vienna next winter. I hope there is a good chef at the embassy.
If there's not, the ambassador will certainly have to be recalled. Pray, point out Mrs. Cheveley to me. I should like to see her.
Let me introduce you. My dear, Sir Robert Chiltern wishes to know you.
Everyone is dying to know the brilliant Mrs. Cheveley. Our attachés at Vienna write to us of nothing else.
Thank you, Sir Robert. An acquaintance that begins with a compliment is sure to develop into real friendship. It starts in the right manner. And I find I know Lady Chiltern already.
Really?
Yes, she has just reminded me that we were at school together. I remember it perfectly now. She always got the good conduct prize. I have a distinct recollection of Lady Chiltern always getting the good conduct prize.
And which prizes did you get, Mrs. Cheveley?
My prizes came on a little later in life. I don't think any of them were for good conduct. I forget.
I'm sure they were for something charming.
Oh, I'm not sure women are always rewarded for being charming. I think they are usually punished for it. Certainly more women grow old through the faithfulness of their admirers than from anything else. At least, that is the only way I can account for the terribly haggard look of most of your pretty women in London.
What an appalling philosophy that sounds. But do sit down. And now tell me, what makes you leave your brilliant Vienna for our gloomy London? Or perhaps the question is indiscreet?
Questions are never indiscreet. Answers sometimes are.
At any rate, may I know if it is politics or pleasure?
Politics are my only pleasure. You see, nowadays it is not fashionable for a woman to flirt till she is 40, or to be romantic till she is 45. So we poor women who are under 30, or say we are, have nothing open to us but politics or philanthropy. And philanthropy seems to me to have become merely the refuge of people who wish to annoy their fellow creatures. I prefer politics. I think they are more becoming.
A political life is a noble career.
Sometimes, and sometimes it is a clever game, Sir Robert. And sometimes it is a great nuisance.
Which do you find it?
A combination of all three.
Oh, allow me.
Thanks.
But you've not told me yet what makes you honor London so suddenly. Our season is almost over.
Oh, I don't care about the London season. It is far too matrimonial. People are either hunting for husbands or hiding from them. I wanted to meet you. It is quite true. You know what a woman's curiosity is, almost as great as a man's. I wanted immensely to meet you and to ask you to do something for me.
Well, I hope it's not a little thing, Mrs. Cheveley. I find that little things are so very difficult to do.
No, I don't think it is quite a little thing.
I'm so glad. Do tell me what it is.
Later on. And now, may I walk through your beautiful house? I hear your pictures are charming. Baron Arnheim, you remember the Baron? Used to tell me you had some wonderful paintings.
Did you know Baron Arnheim well?
Intimately. Did you?
At one time.
Wonderful man, wasn't he?
He was very remarkable in many ways.
I often think it's such a pity he never wrote his memoirs. They would have been most interesting. Lord Goring!
Oh, my dear Arthur, Mrs. Cheveley, allow me to introduce to you Lord Goring, the idlest man in London.
I have met Lord Goring before.
I did not think you would remember me, Mrs. Cheveley.
My memory is under admirable control, and are you still married? The bachelor, I mean.
I believe so.
How very romantic.
Oh, I'm not at all romantic. I'm not old enough. I leave romance to my seniors. May I ask, Are you staying in London long?
That depends. Partly on the weather, partly on the cooking, and partly on Sir Robert.
You are not going to plunge us into a European war, I hope.
There is no danger at present.
You are very late.
Did you miss me?
Awfully.
Then I'm sorry I did not stay away longer. I like being missed.
How very selfish of you.
I'm very selfish.
You're always telling me of your bad qualities, Lord Goring.
I've only told you half of them as yet, Miss Mabel.
Are the others very bad?
Quite dreadful. When I think of them at night, I go to sleep at once.
Well, I delight in your bad qualities. I wouldn't have you part with one of them.
How very nice of you to say so, but then you're always nice. By the way, Miss Mabel, I want to ask you a question. Who brought Mrs. Cheveley here? That woman in heliotrope who's just gone out of the room with your brother.
Oh, I think Lady Markby brought her. Why do you ask?
I haven't seen her for years, that's all.
What an absurd reason.
All reasons are absurd.
What sort of a woman is she?
Oh, a genius in the daytime and a beauty at night.
I dislike her already.
That shows your admirable good taste.
The lady is the dragon of good taste, is she not? Quite the dragon of good taste.
So the newspapers are always telling us?
I read all the newspapers. I find them so amusing.
Then, my dear Nanja, you must certainly learn to read between the lines.
Well, I would, of course, but my professor objects. May I have the pleasure of escorting you to the music room, mademoiselle?
Delighted, Vicomte. Quite delighted. Aren't you coming to the music room?
Not if there's any music going on, Miss Mabel.
The music isn't German. You would not understand it.
Well, sir.
Good evening, Father.
Good evening. What are you doing here? Wasting your life as usual? Oh, you ought to be in bed, sir. You keep too late hours. I heard of you the other night at Lady Rutherford's, dancing till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Only at 3:45, Father.
I cannot make out how you stand London society. The whole thing has gone to the dogs. A bunch of damn nobodies talking about nothing.
I love talking about nothing, Father. It's the only thing I know anything about.
You seem to me to be living entirely for pleasure.
What else is there to live for, Father? Nothing ages like happiness.
You are heartless, very heartless.
I hope not, Father. Good evening, Lady Basildon.
Are you here? I had no idea you came to political parties.
Oh, I adore political parties. They're the only place left to us where people don't talk politics.
I adore talking politics. In fact, I could talk them all day long. It's listening that I can't stand. I couldn't understand how those men in Parliament stand those long debates.
By never listening.
Really?
Of course. You see, there's a very dangerous thing to listen. If one listens, one may be convinced, and a man that allows himself to be convinced by an argument is a thoroughly unreasonable person.
That accounts for so much in men that I've never understood, and so much in women that their husbands never appreciate in them.
Our husbands never appreciate anything in us. We have to go to others for that.
Yes. Always to others, have we not?
And those are the views of the two ladies who are known to have the most admirable husbands in London.
That is exactly what we can't stand. My dear Reginald is quite hopelessly faultless. He is unendurably so at times. There's not even the smallest element of excitement in knowing him.
How terrible, really. The thing should be more widely known.
Basildon is quite as bad. He's as domestic as if he were a bachelor.
My poor Olivia. We've married perfect husbands and are well punished for it.
I should have thought it was the husbands who were punished.
Oh dear, no. They're as happy as possible. And as for trusting us, it is tragic how much they trust us.
Terribly tragic.
Or comic, Lady Basildon.
Certainly not comic, Lord Goring. How cruel of you to say such a thing.
I'm afraid Lord Goring is in the camp of the enemy, as usual.
I saw him talking to that Mrs. Cheveley when he came in.
Oh, front. Handsome woman, Mrs. Cheveley.
Please do not compliment other women in our presence. You might anger us to do that.
I did wait.
Oh, well, we are not going to praise her. I heard she went to opera on Monday night and told Tommy Rufford that, as far as she could see, London society is entirely made up of dowdies and dandies.
She's quite right, too. The women are all dowdies and the men are all dandies, aren't they?
Oh, do you really think that is what Mrs. Cheveley meant?
Of course, and a very sensible remark for Mrs. Cheveley to make, too.
Why are you talking about Mrs. Cheveley? Everybody is talking about Mrs. Cheveley. Lord Goring says... What did you say, Lord Goring, about Mrs. Cheveley? Oh, I remember. That she was a genius in the daytime and a beauty at night.
What a hard combination. So very unnatural. I like looking at beautiful people and listening to geniuses.
How very morbid of you, Mrs. Marchmont.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. Marshman and I have been married for 5 years, and he has never once told me that I was morbid. Men are so painfully unobservant.
I've always said you were the most morbid woman in London.
But you're always sympathetic, Olivia.
Is it morbid to have a desire for food? I have a great desire for food. Lord Goring, will you give me some supper?
With pleasure, Miss Mabel.
How horrid you have been. You have never talked to me the whole evening.
How could I? You went away with the child diplomatist.
You might have followed us. Pursuit would have been only polite. I don't think I like your toll this evening.
I like you immensely.
Well, I wish you'd show it in a more marked way.
Olivia, I have a curious feeling of absolute faintness. I think I should like some supper very much. I know I should like some supper.
I'm positively dying for some supper.
Men are so horribly selfish. They never think of these things.
Men are grossly material. Grossly material.
May I have the honor of escorting you to supper, Comtesse?
Thank you, Vicomte. I never take supper. Oh, but I will gladly go down with you with pleasure.
I am so fond of the eating. I am very English in all my days.
Well, you look quite English, Vicomte. Quite English.
Like some supper, Mrs. Marchmont?
Thank you, Mr. Trafford, but I never touch supper. But I will sit beside you and watch you.
I don't think I should like being watched from the meeting.
Then I will watch someone else.
I don't think I should like that either.
Pray, Mr. Trafford, do not make public scenes of jealousy.
Now you're going to any of our country houses before you leave England, Mrs. Cheveley?
Oh, no, I can't stand your English house parties. In England, people actually try to be brilliant at breakfast. That is so dreadful of them. Only dull people are brilliant at breakfast. My stay in England really depends on you.
Seriously?
Quite seriously.
What did you wish to discuss with me?
I wanted to talk to you about a great political and financial scheme. This Argentine Canal Company, in fact.
What a tedious and practical subject you talk about, Mrs. Cheveley.
Oh, I like tedious practical subjects. What I don't like are tedious practical people. There is a wide difference. Besides, you are interested, I know, in international canal schemes. You were Lord Radley's secretary when the government bought the Suez Canal shares.
Yes, but the Suez Canal was a very brilliant and splendid undertaking. It gave us our direct route to India. It had imperial value. This Argentine scheme, however, is a commonplace stock exchange swindle.
A speculation, Sir Robert. A brilliant and daring speculation.
It is a swindle, Mrs. Cheveley. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes matters simpler. We have all the information about it at the Foreign Office. In fact, I sent out a special commission to inquire into the matter privately, and they report that the works are hardly begun. And as for the money already subscribed, no one seems to know what has become of it. I hope you have not invested in it. I'm sure you're far too clever to have done that.
I have invested very largely in it.
Who could have advised you to do such a foolish thing?
Your old friend and mine.
Who?
Baron Arnheim.
Oh. Yes, I remember hearing at the time of his death that he had been mixed up in the whole affair.
It was his last romance. His last but one, to do him justice.
But you have not seen my paintings yet. May I show them to you?
Later on. I want to talk business.
I'm afraid I have no advice to give you, Mrs. Cheveley, except to interest yourself in something far less dangerous. The success of the canal depends, of course, on the attitude of England, and I'm going to lay the report of the Commission before the House tomorrow night.
That you must not do, Sir Robert. In your own interest, to say nothing of mine, you must not do that.
In my own interest? My dear Mrs. Cheveley, what do you mean?
Sir Robert, I will be quite frank with you. I want you to withdraw the report you had intended to lay before the House on the grounds that you have reason to believe the commissioners have been prejudiced or misinformed or something. Then I want you to say words to the effect that the government is going to reconsider the question, and you have reason to believe that the canal, if completed, will be of great international value. Will you do that for me?
Mrs. Cheveley, you cannot be serious in making me such a proposition.
I'm quite serious.
Pray allow me to believe you are not.
But I am. And if you do what I ask you, I will pay you handsomely.
Pay me?
Yes.
I'm afraid I don't quite understand what you're talking about.
Oh, how very disappointing. And I've come all the way from Vienna in order that you should thoroughly understand me.
Fear I don't.
My dear Sir Robert, you are a man of the world, and you have your price, I suppose. Everybody has nowadays. The only drawback is that most people are so dreadfully expensive. I know I am. I hope you will be more reasonable in your terms.
If you will allow me, I will call your carriage for you. You've lived so long abroad, Mrs. Cheveley, that you seem unable to realize you're talking to an English gentleman.
I realize I am talking to a man who laid the foundation of his fortune by selling to a stock exchange speculator a cabinet secret.
What do you mean?
I mean that I know the origin of your wealth and your career. And I have your letter, too.
What letter?
The letter you wrote to Baron Arnheim when you were Lord Bradley's secretary, telling the Baron to buy Suez Canal shares. A letter dated 3 days before the government announced its own purchase.
It's not true.
Oh, you thought that letter had been destroyed. How foolish of you. It is in my possession.
The affair to which you allude was no more than a speculation. The House of Commons had not yet passed a bill. It might have been rejected.
It was a swindle, Sir Robert. Let us call things by their proper names. And now I am going to sell you that letter, and the price I ask for it is your public support of the Argentine scheme. You made your fortune out of one canal, you must help me and my friends make our fortunes out of another.
It is infamous what you propose.
Oh no, Sir Robert, this is the game of life, as we all have to play it sooner or later. And it is not for you to make terms, it is for you to accept them. Supposing you refuse.
What then?
My dear Sir Robert, what then? You are ruined, that is all. In old days, nobody pretended to be a bit better than one's neighbours. In fact, to be a bit better than one's neighbours was considered excessively vulgar and middle class. Nowadays, with our modern mania for morality, everyone has to pose as a paragon of purity, incorruptibility, and all the other 7 deadly virtues. And what is the result? You all go over like 9 pins, one after the other. Scandals used to lend charm, or at least interest, to a man. Now they crush him. and yours is a very nasty scandal. Supposing it was known that as a young man, secretary to a great and important minister, you sold a cabinet secret for a large sum of money, or would be hounded out of public life, you couldn't survive it. You would disappear completely. And why should you sacrifice your entire future rather than deal diplomatically with your enemy? I am your enemy for the moment, I admit it. But at least I've not taught morality to you. You must admit in fairness, I have spared you that. Years ago, you did a clever, unscrupulous thing. It turned out a great success. You owe to it your fortune and position. And now you have got to pay for it. Sooner or later, we all have to pay for what we do. You have to pay now. Before I leave this house tonight, you have got to promise to suppress your report and to speak in the house in favor of this scheme.
What you ask is impossible.
It's possible. You are going to make it possible. Sir Robert, you know what your English newspapers are like. Supposing when I leave this house tonight, I drive to some newspaper office and give them the scandals and the proofs of it. Imagine their loathsome joy, of the delight they would have in dragging you down, of the mud and mire they would plunge you in.
Stop! You want me to withdraw the report and to make a speech stating that I believe there are benefits to this scheme?
Those are my terms.
I will give you any sum of money you want.
Even you are not rich enough to buy back your past. No man is.
I will not do what you ask me. I will not!
You have to. If you don't...
No, wait a moment. What did you propose? You said you would give me back my letter, didn't you?
Yes, that is agreed. If you make a speech in the house tomorrow in the terms I wish, I will hand you back your letter with the prettiest thanks and the best, or at least the most suitable compliment I can think of. I intend to play quite fairly with you. One should always play fairly when one has the winning cards. The Baron taught me that, amongst other things.
You must let me have time to consider your proposal.
No, we must settle now.
No, give me a week. 3 days!
Impossible. I've got to telegraph to Vienna tonight.
My God, what brought you into my life?
Circumstances.
Don't go! I consent. The report shall be withdrawn. I will arrange for a question to be put to me on the subject.
Thank you. I knew we should come to an amicable agreement. I understood your nature from the first. And now you may get my carriage for me. I see people coming up from supper, and Englishmen always get romantic after a meal, and that bores me terribly.
Well, my dear Mrs. Cheveley, I hope you have enjoyed yourself. Sir Robert is very entertaining, is he not?
Most entertaining. I have enjoyed my talk with him immensely.
Oh, he has had a very interesting and brilliant career, and he has married a most admirable wife. Lady Chiltern is a woman of the very highest principles, I am glad to say. I'm a little too old now myself to trouble about setting a good example, but I always admire those who do. And Lady Chiltern has a very ennobling effect of life, though her dinner parties are rather dull sometimes. But one can't have everything, can one? And now I must go, dear. Shall I see you at the park tomorrow?
Thanks.
Everything looks so fresh in the park now.
Except the people.
Indeed, the people are perhaps a little jaded. I have often observed that the season, as it goes on, produces a kind of softening of the brain. But everything is better than high intellectual pressure. That is the most detestable thing there is. It makes the noses of the young girls so particularly large, and there is nothing so difficult to marry as a large nose. Men don't like them. Good night, dear. Good night, Gertrude.
a charming house you have, Lady Chiltern. I have spent a delightful evening. It has been so interesting getting to know your husband.
Why did you wish to meet my husband, Mrs. Cheveley?
Oh, I will tell you. I wanted to interest him in this Argentine canal scheme of which I dare say you have heard. And I found him most susceptible. Susceptible to reason, I mean, a rare thing in a man. I converted him in 10 minutes.
There must be some mistake. That scheme could never have my husband's support.
Oh, I assure you, it is all settled now. I don't regret my tedious journey from Vienna now. It has been a great success. But of course, for the next 24 hours, the whole thing is a dead secret.
A secret? Between whom?
Between your husband and myself.
Your carriage is here, Mrs. Cheveley.
Good evening, Lady Chiltern. Good night, Lord Goring. I'm at Claridge's. Will you see me down, Sir Robert? Now that we have the same interests at heart, we shall be great friends, I hope.
What a horrid woman.
You should go to bed, Miss Mabel.
Lord Goring.
My father told me to go to bed an hour ago. I don't see why I shouldn't give you the same advice. I always pass on good advice. It's the only thing to do with it. It is never of any use to oneself.
Lord Goring, you are always ordering me out of the room. I think it most courageous of you, especially as I'm not going to bed for hours. You can come and sit down if you like and talk about anything in the world except the Royal Academy, Mrs. Cheveley, or novels in Scotch dialect. They are not improving subjects. What is this? Someone has dropped a diamond brooch. Quite beautiful, isn't it? I wish it was mine, but Gertrude never lets me wear anything but pearls, and I'm thoroughly sick of pearls. They make one look so plain, so good, and so intellectual. I wonder who the brooch belongs to.
I wonder who dropped it.
It is a beautiful brooch.
It is a handsome bracelet.
It isn't a bracelet, it's a brooch.
It can be used as a bracelet.
What are you doing?
Miss Mabel, I'm going to make a rather strange request of you.
Oh, pray do. I've been waiting for it all evening.
Don't mention to anybody that I've taken charge of this brooch. Should anyone write and claim it, let me know at once.
That is a strange request.
Well, you see, I gave this brooch to somebody once, years ago.
You did?
Yes.
Then I shall certainly bid you good night. Good night, Gertrude.
Night. Good evening, Lord Goring.
Good evening, Lady Chiltern. You saw who Mrs. Cheveley, who Lady Markby brought here?
Yes.
Yes, what did she come here for?
Apparently to try and lure Robert to uphold some scandalous scheme in which she is interested.
She's mistaken her man, hasn't she?
She is incapable of understanding an upright nature like my husband's.
Yes, I should fancy she came to grief if she tried to get Robert into her toils. It is extraordinary, what astounding mistakes clever women make.
I don't call women of that kind clever. I call them stupid.
Same thing, often. Good night, Lady Chiltern.
Good night.
You're not going already, Arthur. Do stop a little.
I'm afraid I can't, thanks. I've promised to look in at the Heartlocks. I believe they've got a mauve Hungarian band that plays mauve Hungarian music. See you soon. Goodbye.
Robert.
How beautiful you look tonight, Gertrude.
Thank you. It is not true, is it? You are not going to support this Argentine speculation. You couldn't.
Who told you I intended to do so?
That woman who has just gone out, Mrs. Cheveley as she calls herself now, she seemed to taunt me with it. Robert, I know this woman. You don't. We were at school together. She was untruthful, dishonest, an evil influence on anyone whose friendship or trust she could win. I hated. I despised her. She was sent away for being a thief. Why do you let her influence you?
Gertrude, what you tell me may be true, but it happened many years ago. It is best forgotten. Mrs. Cheveley may have changed since then. No one should be judged entirely by their past.
One's past is what one is, Robert. It is the only way by which people should be judged.
That is a hard saying, Gertrude.
It is a true saying, Robert. But what did she mean by boasting she had got you to lend your support, your name, to a thing I have heard you describe as the most fraudulent and dishonest scheme there has ever been in political life?
I was mistaken in the view I took. We all may make mistakes.
But you said just yesterday you had received a report from the commission and had entirely condemned the whole thing.
I have reason now to believe that the commission was prejudiced, or at any rate misinformed. Besides, Gertrude, public and private lives are different things. They have different laws and move on different lines.
They should both represent man at his highest. I see no difference between them.
In the present case, on a matter of practical politics, I have changed my mind. That is all.
Oh?
Yes.
Robert, are you telling me the whole truth?
Why do you ask me such a question, Gertrude?
Why do you not answer it?
Gertrude, truth is a very complex thing, and politics a very complex business. There are wheels within wheels. Sooner or later in political life, one has to compromise.
Compromise? Robert, why do you talk so differently tonight? Why are you changed?
I am not changed, but circumstances alter things.
Circumstances should never alter principles.
But if I told you that...
What?
That it was necessary, vitally necessary.
It can never be necessary to do what is not honorable, Robert. Tell me it is not. Why should it be? What would we gain? Money? We have no need of that. Power? But it is the power to do good that is fine. That and that only. Robert, tell me why you are going to do this dishonorable thing.
Gertrude, you have no right to use that word. As I said before, it is a matter of rational compromise. No more than that.
Robert, that is all very well for other men. For men who treat life simply as a sordid speculation. But not for you, Robert. You are different. All your life, you have stood apart from others. To the world, as to myself, you have been an ideal always. Oh, be that ideal still. Don't kill my love for you.
Gertrude.
I know that there are men with horrible secrets in their lives. Men who have done some shameful thing and in some crucial moment have to pay for it by doing some other act of shame. Robert, is there in your life any secret dishonor or disgrace? Tell me at once that...
That what?
That our lives may drift apart.
Drift apart?
That they may be entirely separate. It would be better for us both.
Gertrude, there's nothing in my past life that you might not know.
I was sure of it, Robert. I was sure of it. You will write, won't you, to Mrs. Cheveley? And tell her you cannot support this scandalous scheme of hers. If you have given her any promise, you must take it back.
Must I write and tell her all that?
Surely, Robert. What else is there to do?
I might see her personally. It would be better.
No. You must never see her again, Robert. She is not a woman you should ever speak to. She is not worthy to talk to a man like you. No. You must write your letter and let it show her that your decision is quite irrevocable.
But it is so late. It's close on 12.
That makes no matter. She must know at once she is being mistaken in you. Write to her that you decline to support this scheme of hers as you hold it to be a dishonest scheme. Yes, write the word dishonest. She knows what that word means. Yes, that will do. And now the envelope. Have this letter sent at once to Claridge's Hotel, Mason. There is no answer.
Yes, my lady.
Robert, I feel that tonight I have saved you from something that might have been a danger to you. From something that might have made other men honor you less than they do. I don't think you realize sufficiently, Robert, that you have brought into the political life of our time a nobler atmosphere. And for that, I love you.
Love me always, Gertrude. Love me always.
I will always love you, for you will always be worthy of love.
Put out the lights, Mason. Put out the lights.
It is a very awkward business, Robert. Very awkward indeed. You should have told your wife the whole thing. Secrets from other people's wives are a necessary luxury in modern life, but no man should have a secret from his own wife. She invariably finds it out.
When? When should I have told her? Not last night. It would have made a lifelong separation between us, and I would have lost the love of the one woman in the world I worship, of the only woman who's ever stood love within me. No, last night would have been quite impossible, Arthur.
Is Lady Chiltern as perfect as all that?
Well, yes, my wife is as perfect as all that.
What a pity. I'm sorry, my dear fellow, I didn't quite mean that, but if what you tell me is true, I should like to have a serious talk about life with Lady Chiltern.
It would be quite useless.
May I try?
Yes, but nothing may make her alter her views.
Well, I am bound to say you should have told her years ago.
When? When we were engaged. Do you really think that she would have married me if she had known that the origin of my fortune is such as it is, the basis of my career is such as it is, and that I had done a thing that I suppose most men would consider shameful or dishonorable?
Yes, most men would call it ugly names. There's no doubt of that.
Men who every day do something of the same kind themselves. Men who each one of them have worse secrets in their own lives.
That is why they're so pleased to find out other people's secrets. It distracts public attention from their own.
And after all, whom did I wrong by what I did? No one.
Except yourself, Robert.
Of course, I had private information about a certain transaction contemplated by the government of the day, and I acted on it. Private information is practically the source of every large modern fortune.
And public scandal, invariably the result.
Arthur, do you really think that what I did nearly 18 years ago should be brought up against me now? Do you think it fair that a man's whole career should be ruined for a fault done in one's boyhood almost? I had the double misfortune of being well born and poor, two unforgivable things nowadays. Is it fair that the folly, the sin of one's youth, if men choose to call it a sin, should shatter all that I've worked for, all that I have built up? Is it fair, Arthur?
Life is never fair, Robert, and perhaps it is a good thing for most of us that it is not.
Every man of ambition has to fight his century with its own weapons. What this century worships is wealth. The god of this century is wealth. To succeed, one must have wealth.
You underrate yourself, Robert. Without wealth, you could have succeeded just as well.
When I was old, perhaps. When I'd lost my passion for power or could not use it. When I was tired, worn out, disappointed. No, I wanted my success when I was young. I could not wait. Youth is the time for success.
Well, you've certainly had your success while you're still young. No one in our day has had such a brilliant success. Under Secretary for Foreign Affairs at your age. That should be good enough for anyone, I should think.
And if it's all taken away from me now, if I am hounded from public life.
Robert, how could you have sold yourself for money?
I did not sell myself for money. I bought success at a great price. That is all.
Yes, you certainly paid a great price for it. But what first ever made you think of doing such a thing?
Baron Arnheim.
Damn scoundrel.
No. He was a man of a most subtle and refined intellect. A man of culture, charm, and distinction. One of the most intellectual men I have ever met.
I prefer a gentlemanly fool any day. There's more to be said for stupidity than people imagine. Personally, I have a great admiration for stupidity. It's a sort of fellow feeling, I suppose. But how did he do it? Tell me. The whole thing.
One night, After dinner at Lord Radley's, the Baron began talking to us about success in modern life as something that one could reduce to an absolutely definite science. With that wonderfully fascinating, quiet voice of his, he expounded to us the most terrible of all philosophies, the philosophy of power, and preached to us the most marvelous of all gospels, the gospel of gold. I think he saw the effect that he had upon me, for some days afterward he wrote and asked me to come and see him. I remember so well how, with a strange smile on his pale, curved lips, he led me to his wonderful picture gallery, showed me his tapestries, his enamels, his jewels, carved ivories, made me wonder of the strange loveliness and the luxury in which he lived. And then he told me that luxury was nothing but a background, a painted scene in a play, and that power over other men, power over the world was the one thing worth having, the one supreme pleasure worth knowing, the one joy one never tired of. Yes. And that in our century, only the rich possessed it.
A thoroughly shallow creed.
I didn't think so then. I don't think so now. Wealth has given me enormous power. It gave me at the outset of my life freedom, and freedom is everything. You've never been poor, never known what ambition is. You cannot understand what a wonderful chance the Baron held out to me. Such a chance as few men get.
Fortunately for them, if one is to judge by results. But tell me, definitely, Robert, how did the Baron finally persuade you to do what you did?
As I was leaving, the Baron told me that if I could ever offer him any information of real value, he'd make me a very rich man. I was dazed at the prospect he held out to me, for my ambition and desire for power were at that time boundless. 6 weeks later, certain private documents passed through my hands.
State documents?
Yes.
Robert, I had no idea that you, of all men in the world, could have been so weak as to yield to such a temptation as Baron Arnheim held out to you.
Weak? Do you really think, Arthur, that it is weakness that yields to temptation? I tell you, there are horrible temptations, and it requires strength and courage to yield to stake all one's life in a single moment, to risk everything on one throw. Whether that stake be power or pleasure, I care not. There's no weakness in that. It is a horrible, a terrible courage. I have that courage. I sat down that same afternoon and wrote Baron Arnheim the letter this woman now holds. He made $750,000 over the transaction.
And you?
I received from the Baron £110,000.
You were worth more, Robert.
No, that money gave me exactly what I wanted. Power over others. I went into the house immediately. The Baron advised me in finance from time to time. Within 5 years, I had almost trebled my fortune. Since then, everything that I have touched has turned out a success. In all things connected with money, I've had a luck so extraordinary that it has made me almost, well, afraid.
But Robert, did you never suffer any remorse for what you had done?
No. I felt that I'd fought the century with its own weapons and won.
You thought you had won?
I thought so. Arthur, do you despise me for what I've told you?
I'm very sorry for you, Robert. Very sorry indeed.
I didn't say that I suffered any remorse. I don't. But I have paid conscience money many times. I had a wild hope that I might disarm destiny. The sum Baron Arnheim gave me, I have distributed twice over in public charities since then.
In public charities? Dear me, Robert, what a lot of harm you must have done.
Don't say that, Arthur.
Oh, never mind what I say. I usually say what I really think. A great mistake nowadays. It makes one so liable to be misunderstood. But as regards this dreadful business, I will help you in whatever way I can. Of course you know that.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you so much. But what is there to be done? What can be done?
Well, the English can't stand a man who's always saying he's in the right, but they're very fond of a man who admits when he's been in the wrong. It's one of the best things in them. In your case, however, a confession would not do. The money, if you will allow me to say so, is awkward. Besides, if you did make a clean breast of the whole affair, you would never be able to talk morality again. And in England, a man who can't talk morality twice a week to a large, popular, immoral audience is quite over as a serious politician. No, a confession would be of no use. It would ruin you.
Would ruin me. Arthur, the only thing for me to do is to fight this thing out.
Yes, I was waiting for you to say that. That is the only thing to be done, and you must begin by telling your wife the whole thing.
That I will not do.
Believe me, you are wrong.
I couldn't do it. It would kill her love for me. And now, about this woman, this Mrs. Cheveley. How can I defend myself against her? You knew her before, Arthur, apparently.
Yes.
Well, did you know her well?
So little that I got engaged to be married to her once when I was staying at the Tenbys. The whole affair lasted 3 days, nearly.
Why was it broken off?
Ooh, I forget. At least it's no matter. By the way, have you tried her with money? She used to be confoundedly fond of money.
I offered her any sum she wanted. She refused.
Well, the marvelous gospel of gold breaks down sometimes. The rich can't do everything after all.
Suppose you're right. Arthur, I feel the public disgrace is in store for me. I feel certain of it. I never knew what terror was before. I know it now.
You must fight her, Robert. You must fight her.
Yes, but how?
I can't tell you at present. I haven't the smallest idea. But everyone has some weakness. There's some weak point in every one of us. My father tells me that even I have faults. Perhaps I have. I don't know.
Defending myself against Mrs. Cheveley, I have a right to use any weapon I can find, have I not?
In your place, I should not have the smallest scruple in doing so. She is thoroughly well able to take care of herself.
Ah, then I shall send a cipher telegram to the embassy at Vienna to inquire if there's anything known against her. There must be some secret scandal she might be afraid of.
I should fancy Mrs. Cheveley is one of those very modern women of our time who finds a new scandal as becoming as a new bonnet and airs them both in the park every afternoon. I'm sure she adores scandal, and the sorrow of her life at present is that she can't manage to have enough of them.
What do you mean by that?
Well, she wore far too much rouge last night, and not quite enough clothes. That is a sign of despair in any woman.
But it is worthwhile my wiring to Vienna, is it not?
It is always worthwhile asking a question, though it is not always worthwhile answering one.
Is Mr. Trafford in his room?
Yes, Sir Robert.
Have this sent off in cipher at once. There must not be a moment's delay.
Yes, Sir Robert.
You seem to have a curious hold over Baron Arnheim. I wonder what it was.
I wonder.
We'll fight her to the death, Arthur, as long as my wife knows nothing.
Fight in any case, Robert, in any case.
And if my wife found out, there would be little left to fight for. Well, at any rate, as soon as I hear back from the embassy, I shall let you know. As I fought the age with its own weapons, I shall fight her with her weapons. It's only fair. She looks like a woman with a past, doesn't she?
Most pretty women do. But there is a fashion in pasts, just as there is a fashion in frocks. Besides, my dear Robert, I should not build too high hopes on frightening Mrs. Cheveley. I should not think Mrs. Cheveley is a woman easily frightened. She has survived all her creditors, and she shows wonderful presence of mind.
I live on hopes now. I clutch at every chance. Hush, I hear my wife's voice. Gertrude.
Good afternoon, Lord Goring.
Good afternoon, Lady Chiltern. Have you been in the park?
No, I have just come from the Women's Liberal Association, where, by the way, Robert, your name was received with loud applause. And now I have come in to have my tea. You will wait and have some tea, won't you?
I'll stay for a short time, thanks.
I'll only be a moment. I'm just going to take off my hat.
Oh, please don't. It is such a pretty hat. It is one of the prettiest hats I ever saw. I hope the Women's Liberal Association received it with loud applause.
We have much more important things to do than then admire each other's bonnets, Lord Goring.
Really? What sort of things?
Oh, useful, delightful things. Factory acts, female inspectors, the 8 Hours Bill, the parliamentary franchise. Everything, in fact, you would find thoroughly uninteresting.
And never bonnets?
Never bonnets.
I must thank you for what you've done, Arthur. You've been a thoroughly good friend to me.
I don't think I've been able to do much for you as yet, Robert. In fact, I've not been able to do anything for you as far as I can tell. I'm thoroughly disappointed in myself.
No, you've allowed me to tell the truth, and that is something. The truth has always stifled me.
The truth is a thing I always get rid of as soon as possible. Bad habit, by the way, makes one very unpopular at the club.
I would to God that I had been able to tell the truth, to live the truth. Well, I'll see you again soon, Arthur, shan't I?
Oh, certainly, whenever you like. I'll come round tomorrow morning. If you should tonight by any chance, send round a note to Curzon Street.
Thank you.
You're not going, Robert.
I have some letters to write, dear.
You work too hard, Robert. You seem to never think of yourself, and you are looking so tired.
It is nothing, dear. Nothing.
Do sit down. I am so glad you called. I want to talk to you about, well, not about the Women's Liberal Association or bonnets. You take entirely too much interest in the second thing and not nearly enough in the first.
You want to talk to me about Mrs. Cheveley?
Yes, you have guessed it. After you left last night, I found out what she said was really true. Of course, I made Robert write a letter immediately withdrawing his promise.
So he gave me to understand.
To have kept it would have been the first stain on a career that has been stainless always. Robert must be above reproach. He is not like other men. He cannot afford to do what other men do. Don't you agree with me? You are Robert's greatest friend. You are our greatest friend, Lord Goring. No one, except myself, knows Robert better than you. He has no secrets from me, and I don't think he has any from you.
No, he certainly has no secrets from me. At least I don't think so.
Then am I not right in my estimate of him? Oh, I know I am right. But speak to me frankly.
Quite frankly.
Surely you have nothing to conceal, have you?
Nothing. But, my dear Lady Chiltern, if you will allow me to say so, I think that in practical life there is something...
Of which you know so little, Lord Goring.
Of which I know nothing by experience, though I know something by observation. I think that in practical life there is something about success that is a little unscrupulous. Something about success that is unscrupulous always. When a man sets his heart and soul on reaching a certain point, if he has to climb the crag, he climbs the crag. If he has to walk in the mire,
well,
he walks in the mire. I am only talking generally about life.
I hope so. Why do you look at me so strangely, Lord Goring?
Lady Chiltern, I have sometimes thought that perhaps you are a little hard in some of your views on life. I think that sometimes you don't make sufficient allowances. In every nature, there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Supposing, for example, that any public man, my father, Lord Merton, or Robert, say, had years ago written a foolish letter with the intention of...
What do you mean, foolish letter?
A letter gravely compromising one's position. I'm only putting an imaginary case.
Robert is as incapable of doing a foolish thing as he is of doing a wrong thing.
Nobody is incapable of doing a foolish thing. Nobody is incapable of doing a wrong thing. Life cannot be understood without much charity. Life cannot be lived without much charity. It is love that is the true explanation of this world, whatever may be the explanation of the next. And if you are ever in trouble, Lady Chiltern, you trust me, absolutely, and I will help you in whatever way I can. If you should ever want me, come to me for my assistance, and you shall have it. Come at once to me.
Lord Goring, you are talking quite seriously. I don't think I have ever heard you talk seriously before.
You must excuse me, Lady Chiltern. It won't occur again if I can help it.
But I'd like you to be serious.
Dear Gertrude, don't say such a dreadful thing to Lord Goring. Seriousness would be very unbecoming to him. Good afternoon, Lord Goring. Pray be as trivial as you can.
I should like to, Miss Mabel, but I'm afraid I'm a little out of practice this morning. Besides, I have to be going now.
Just when I've come in? What dreadful manners you have. I'm sure you're very badly brought up.
I was.
I wish I brought you up.
I'm so sorry you didn't.
It's too late now, I suppose.
I'm not so sure.
Will you ride tomorrow morning?
Yes, at 10.
Don't forget.
Of course I shan't. By the way, Lady Chiltern, there is no list of your guests in the Morning Post of today. It has apparently been crowded out by the County Council or the Lambeth Conference or something equally boring. Would you let me have a copy of the list? I have a particular reason for asking you.
I am sure Mr. Trafford can give you one.
Thanks so much.
Tommy is the most useful person in London.
And who is the most ornamental?
I am.
How clever of you to guess it. Goodbye, Lady Chiltern. You will remember what I told you, won't you?
Yes, but I don't know why you said it.
I hardly know myself. Goodbye, Miss Mabel.
I wish you were not going. I had 4 wonderful adventures this morning. 4.5, in fact. You might stop and listen to some of them.
How selfish of you to have 4.5 adventures without me. There won't be any left for me.
I don't want you to have any. They would not be good for you.
That is the first unkind thing you have ever said to me. How charmingly you said it. 10 tomorrow.
Sharp.
Quite sharp. But don't bring Mr. Trafford.
Of course I shan't bring Tommy Trafford. Tommy Trafford is in great disgrace.
I am delighted to hear it.
Gertrude, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford.
What has poor Mr. Trafford done this time, Mabel? Robert says he is the best secretary he has ever had.
Well, Tommy has proposed to me. Again! Tommy really does nothing but propose to me. He proposed to me last night in the music room when I was quite unprotected, as there was an elaborate trio going on. I didn't dare to make the smallest repartee, I need hardly tell you. If I had, it would have stopped the music at once. Then he proposed to me in broad daylight this morning in front of that dreadful statue of Achilles. Really, the things that go on in front of that work of art are quite appalling. The police should interfere. At luncheon, I saw by the glare in his eye that he was going to propose again. And I just managed to check him in time. And then Tommy is so annoying in the way that he proposes. If he proposed at the top of his voice, I should not mind so much. That might produce some effect on the public. But he does it in a horrid, confidential way. When Tommy wants to be romantic, he talks to one just like a doctor.
Mabel.
I am very fond of Tommy, but his methods of proposing are quite out of date. I wish, Gertrude, you would speak to him and tell him that once a week is quite often enough to propose to anyone, and that it should always be done in a manner that attracts some attention.
Dear Mabel, don't talk like that. Besides, Robert thinks very highly of Mr. Trafford. He thinks he has a brilliant future before him.
Ugh! I wouldn't marry a man with a future before him for anything under the sun.
Hey.
I know, dear. You married a man with a future, didn't you? But then, Robert was a genius, and you have a noble, self-sacrificing character. You can stand geniuses. I have no character at all, and Robert is the only genius I could ever bear. I must go round now and rehearse at Lady Basil's. You remember we were having tableaux, don't you? The triumph of something. I don't know what. I hope it will be the triumph of me. Well, the triumph I'm really interested in at present. Oh, Gertrude! Do you know who's coming to see you? That dreadful Mrs. Cheveley. In a most lovely gown. Did you ask her?
Mrs. Cheveley coming to see me? Impossible.
I assure you she is coming upstairs, as large as life, not nearly so natural.
You needn't quit, Mabel. Remember, Lady Basilton's expecting you.
Now I must shake hands with Lady Markby. She's delightful. I love being scolded by her.
Lady Markby! Mrs. Cheveley! Lady Markby, how good of you to come see me. Do sit down, Mrs. Cheveley. Thanks.
Isn't that Miss Chiltern?
I should like so much to know her. Mabel, Mrs. Cheveley wishes to know you.
I thought your frock so charming last night, so simple and suitable.
Really? I must tell my dressmaker. It will be such a surprise to her. Goodbye, Lady Markby. Going already? I am so sorry, but I am obliged to. I am just off to rehearsal. I have got to stand on my head in some tableaux.
Stand on your head, child.
Oh.
You are remarkably modern, Mabel. Perhaps a little too modern. There is nothing so dangerous as being too modern. One is apt to grow old-fashioned quite suddenly. I have seen many instances of it.
What a dreadful prospect.
Well, you need not be nervous. You will always be as pretty as possible. That is the best fashion there is, and the only one that England succeeds in setting.
Thank you so much, Lady Markby. For England and myself.
Dear Gertrude, we just called to know if Mrs. Cheveley's diamond brooch has been found.
Here? Yes, I missed it when I got back to Claridge's, and I thought I might possibly have dropped it here.
I have not heard anything, but I will ring the housekeeper and ask.
Oh, pray, don't trouble Lady Chiltern. I dare say I lost it at the opera before we came on here.
Ah, yes, I suppose it must have been at the opera. The fact is, we all scramble and jostle so much nowadays that I often wonder we have anything left at all on us at the end of an evening. I know for myself that when I am coming back from the drawing room, I feel as if I haven't a shred on me, except for a shred of decent reputation, just enough for the lower classes not to make painful observations through the windows of the carriage. The fact is, our society is terribly overpopulated. Really, somebody should arrange for a proper scheme of assisted immigration. It would do a great deal of good.
I quite agree, Lady Markby. It has been 6 years since I've been in London for the season, and I dare say society has become dreadfully mixed. One sees the oddest people everywhere.
That is true, my dear, but one needn't know them. I am sure I don't know half the people who come to my house, and from all I hear, I shouldn't like to.
What sort of brooch was it you lost, Mrs. Cheveley?
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby. A rather large ruby.
Has a diamond, snake, and ruby brooch been found in any of the rooms this morning, Mason?
No, my lady. I'm so sorry to have put you to any inconvenience, Lady Chiltern. It really is of no consequence.
It is no inconvenience. That will do, Mason. You can bring the tea.
Well, it is most annoying to lose anything. I remember once at Bath, long ago, losing in the pump room an exceedingly handsome cameo bracelet that Sir John had given me. I don't think he has given me anything ever since. I am sorry to say he has sadly degenerated. Really, this horrid House of Commons quite ruins our husbands for us. I think the lower house by far the greatest threat to a happy married life that there has been ever since that terrible invention called the higher education of women was invented.
Ah, it is heresy to say that in this house, Lady Markby. Robert is a great champion for the higher education of women, and so, I am afraid, am I.
The higher education of men is what I should so like to see. Men need it so sadly.
They do, dear. But such a scheme would be quite unpractical. I don't think man has much capacity for development. They really do not. And isn't it dreadful?
Yes.
I've seen many instances of that as well. Yes. But, you know, women is a different story, my dear Gertrude, and I am sure that you as a woman, as a modern woman, if you approve of it, it is quite all right. Of course, in my time, we were taught not to understand anything. I assure you that the amount of things my dear poor sister and I were taught not to understand was quite extraordinary. But modern women understand everything, I am told.
Except their husbands. That is the one thing a modern woman never understands.
Oh, and a very good thing too, dear, if I may say so, because it would really be bad. But of course, because it would break up very happy marriage, dear Gertrude, if they did. Well, of course not yours. You have married a pattern husband. I wish I could say the same for myself. But ever since Sir John has taken to attending the debates regularly, which he never used to do in the good old days, his language has become quite impossible. He always seems to be addressing the house, and consequently, whenever he has something quite improper to say, I am obliged to send all the servants out of the room. Oh, it is very difficult to see one's own butler, who has been with one for 19 years, actually blushing at the sideboard. Why, just this morning, before breakfast was half over, he stood up on the hearthrug, put his hands in his pockets, and addressed the nation at the top of his voice. It was a very hard thing. And of course I left breakfast before I had my second cup of tea, but his violent language could be heard all over the house. Oh, I hope, dear Gertrude, that Sir Robert is not like that.
But I am very much interested in politics, Lady Markby. I love to hear Robert talk about them. May I offer you some tea, Mrs. Cheveley? Thanks. Some tea, Lady Markby?
Oh, no, thanks. The fact is, I have promised to go round to see Lady Brancaster for 10 minutes, who is in a very great deal of trouble. Her daughter, a very well-brought-up girl too, has actually become engaged to be married to a curate in Shropshire. It is very sad indeed. I don't understand this modern mania for curates. In my time, we girls, of course, saw them running all over the country, but we never took any notice of them, I need hardly say. And then the eldest son has quarreled with his father. There are so many sons who won't have anything to do with their fathers, and so many fathers who won't speak with their sons. Ah, I think to myself, it is very much to be regretted.
So do I, Lady Markby. Fathers have so much to learn from their sons nowadays.
Really, dear? What?
The art of living. The only truly fine art we have managed to produce in modern times.
Well, Lord Brancaster knew a great deal about that, more than Lady Brancaster ever did. You know Lady Brancaster, don't you, dear?
Only slightly. She was staying at Langton when we were there last autumn.
Ah, like old stout women, she is the picture of happiness, as no doubt you have noticed. But there are many tragedies in her life. Her own sister went into a convent, or on the operatic stage, I forget which one. Oh, no, it was decorative art needlework she took up. I know that she had lost all sense of pleasure in life. And now, dear Gertrude, if you will allow me, I will leave Mrs. Cheveley in your care and call back for her in a quarter of an hour. Or perhaps Mrs. Cheveley wouldn't mind waiting in the carriage while I am with Lady Brancaster. Since I intended to be a visit of condolence, I shan't stay long.
Oh, I do hope Mrs. Cheveley will stay. I would love to have a few minutes conversation with her.
How very kind of you, Lady Chiltern. Believe me, nothing would give me greater pleasure.
Oh, I am sure you both have many happy reminiscences of your school days to talk over. Goodbye, Gertrude. Shall I see you at Lady Bonnar's tonight?
No, Robert and I are dining at home by ourselves tonight, and I don't think I shall go anywhere afterwards. Robert, of course, will have to be in the house, but there is nothing interesting on.
Dining at home by yourselves? Is that quite prudent? Oh, well, I forget. Your husband is an exception. Mine is the general rule, and nothing ages a woman more rapidly than having married the general rule.
Wonderful woman, Lady Markby, isn't she? Talks more and says less than anybody I ever met. She's made to be a public speaker.
I think it's right to tell you quite frankly, Mrs. Cheveley, that had I known who you really were last night, I should not have invited you into my house.
Really?
I could not have done so.
I see that after all these years, you haven't changed a bit, Gertrude.
I never change.
Then life has taught you nothing?
It has taught me that a person who has once been guilty of a dishonest or dishonorable action may be guilty of it a second time and should be shunned.
Would you apply that rule to everyone?
To everyone without exception.
Then I am sorry for you, Gertrude. Very sorry for you.
I am sure you see now that for many reasons any further acquaintance between us during your stay in London is quite impossible.
Do you know, I don't mind your talking morality to me a bit. Morality is merely the attitude one adopts towards someone whom one personally dislikes. You dislike me, I'm well aware of it. And I've always detested you. And yet, I've come here to do you a great service.
Like the service you wished to render my husband last night, I suppose. Thank heavens I saved him from that.
It was you who made him write that insolent letter to me. It was you who made him break his promise.
Yes.
Then you must make him keep it. I give you till tomorrow morning, no more. If by that time your husband doesn't solemnly bind himself to help me in this great scheme in which
this
I am
fraudulent speculation.
Call it what you will. I hold your husband in the hollow of my hand, and if you are wise, you will make him do what I tell him.
You are impertinent. What has my husband to do with you? With a woman like you?
In this world, like meets with like. It is because your husband is himself fraudulent and dishonest that we pair so well together. Between you and him there are chasms. He and I are closer than friends. We are enemies linked together. The same sin binds us.
How dare you class my husband with yourself? How dare you threaten him or me? Leave my house.
Your house. A house bought with the price of dishonor. A house everything in which is paid for by fraud. Ask him what the origin of his fortune is. Get him to tell you how he sold to a stockbroker a cabinet secret. Learn from him to what you owe your position.
It is not true. Robert, it is not true.
Look at him. Can he deny it? Does he dare to?
Go. Go at once. You've done your worst now.
My worst? I'm not yet finished with you. With either of you. I give you both until tomorrow at noon. If by that time you don't do what I bid you to do, then the whole world will know the origin of Robert Chiltern.
Show Mrs. Cheveley out.
You sold a cabinet secret for money. You began your life with fraud. Tell me it isn't true. Tell me it isn't true.
What this woman said is quite true. But Gertrude, listen to me. You don't realize how I was tempted. Let me tell you the whole thing.
Come near me.
Gertrude,
Don't touch me. What a mask you have been wearing all these years. You sold yourself for money. You lied to the whole world. And yet you will not lie to me.
Gertrude, please.
No. Don't speak. Say nothing. Your voice wakes terrible memories. Memories that made me love you. And how I worshipped you. And when I think that I made a man like you my ideal, the ideal of my life.
That was your mistake. That was your error. Why can't women love us, faults and all? It is not the perfect, but the imperfect who require love. You made your false idol of me, and I had not the courage to come down, show you my wounds, tell you my weaknesses. I was afraid that I might lose your love, as I've lost it now. So, last night, you ruined my life for me. Yes, ruined it. What this woman asked of me is nothing compared to what she offered. She offered security. The sin of my youth that I thought buried rose up in front of me, hideous, horrible, its hands at my throat. I could have killed it forever. You prevented me. Only you, and you know it. And now, what is there left for me but ruin, disgrace, terrible shame? Let women make no more ideals of men, or they may ruin other lives as completely as you, whom I have so wildly loved, have ruined mine.
me, Phipps?
Yes, my lord.
Rather distinguished theme, Phipps. I am the only person of the smallest importance in London at present who wears a buttonhole.
Yes, my lord. I have observed that.
You see, Phipps, fashion is what one wears oneself. What is unfashionable is what other people wear.
Yes, my lord.
Just as falsehoods are the truths of other people.
Yes, my lord.
And vulgarity is simply the conduct of other people.
Yes, my lord.
Other people are quite dreadful. The only possible society is oneself.
Yes, my lord.
To love oneself, Phipps, is the beginning of a lifelong romance.
Yes, my lord.
I don't think I quite like this buttonhole, Phipps. Makes me look a little too old. Makes me almost in the prime of life, huh, Phipps?
I don't observe any alteration in your lordship's appearance.
You don't, Phipps?
No, my lord.
I'm not so sure. In the future, a more trivial buttonhole on a Thursday evening.
I will speak to the florist, my lord. She has had a loss in her family lately, which perhaps accounts for the lack of triviality your lordship complains of in the buttonhole.
Extraordinary thing about the lower classes in England. They are always losing their relations.
Yes, my lord. They are extremely fortunate in that respect.
Ah, any letters, Phipps?
3, my lord.
Want my cab round in 20 minutes?
Yes, my lord.
Hey, Phipps, when did this letter arrive?
It was brought by hand just after your lordship went to the club.
That will do. Lady Chiltern's handwriting on Lady Chiltern's pink notepaper. You know what Lady Chiltern's got to say to me? I thought Robert was to write. I want you. I trust you. I'm coming to you. Gertrude. I want you. I trust you. I'm coming to you. Oh, so she's found out everything. Poor woman. Poor woman. But what an hour to call. 10 o'clock. She should be here soon. I must tell Phipps I'm not into anyone.
Lord Caversham.
Oh, why will parents always appear at the wrong time? Some extraordinary mistake in nature, I suppose. Good evening, Father.
Take my cloak off.
Is it worthwhile, Father?
Is it of course it is worthwhile, sir. Now, which is the most comfortable chair?
This one is, Father. It is the one I use myself when I have visitors.
Thank you. No drafts, I hope, in this room?
No, Father.
Glad to hear it. Can't stand drafts. No drafts at home.
Good many breezes, Father.
What? I can't understand you. Want to have a serious chat with you, sir?
My dear Father, at this hour...
Oh, well, sir, it is only 10 o'clock. What is your objection to the hour? I think the hour is an admirable hour, sir.
The fact is, Father, this is not my day for talking seriously. I'm very sorry, but this is not my day.
What do you mean, sir?
Well, during the season, Father, I only talk seriously on the first Tuesday of every month from 4 to 7.
Well, make it Tuesday, sir. Make it Tuesday.
But it is after 7, Father, and my doctor tells me I must not have any serious conversation after 7. It makes me talk in my sleep.
Talk in your sleep, sir? What does that matter? You are not married.
No, Father. I'm not married.
Yes, and that is what I have come to talk to you about, sir. You must get married, and at once. But damn, sir, it is your duty to get married. You can't always be living for pleasure, but every man of position is married nowadays. But look where your friend Robert Chiltern has got to by probity and hard work and a sensible marriage to a good woman. Why don't you take him for your model?
I think I shall, Father.
I wish you would, sir. Then I should be happy. As of now, I make your mother's life miserable. On your account, you are heartless, sir. Very heartless.
I hope not, Father.
And besides, it is high time for you to get married. You are 34 years of age?
Yes, Father, but I only admit to 32. 31 and a half when I had a really good buttonhole. This buttonhole is not trivial enough.
I tell you, you are 34, sir, and there is a draft in your room besides which makes your conduct worse. Why did you say there was no draft in here, sir? I feel a draft, sir. I feel it distinctly.
Oh, so do I, Father. It is a dreadful draft. Let me help you on with your cloak, Father. I'll come and see you tomorrow. We can talk over anything you like.
No, sir. I have come here for a specific purpose, and I intend to see it through at any cost to my health or yours. Will you put down that cloak, sir? Put it down.
Certainly, Father. But let us go into another room. There is a dreadful draught here. Phipps, is there a good fire in the smoking room?
Yes, my lord.
Come in there, Father. Your sneezes are quite heart-rending.
Well, sir, I suppose I can sneeze when I choose.
Quite so, Father. I was merely expressing sympathy.
Oh, damn sympathy. There's a great deal too much of that going on nowadays.
I quite agree with you, Father. If there was less sympathy in the world, there would be less trouble in the world.
That is a paradox, sir. I hate paradoxes.
So do I, Father. Everybody witnesses a paradox nowadays. It's a great bore. It makes society so obvious.
Do you always really understand what you say, sir?
Yes, Father, if I listen attentively.
If you listen attentively, conceited young puppet.
Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
There is a lady coming to see me this evening on particular business. Show her into the drawing room when she arrives. You understand?
I understand, my lord.
It is a matter of the gravest importance, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
No one else is to be admitted under any circumstances.
I understand, my lord.
That is probably the lady. I shall see her in myself.
Well, sir, am I to wait attendance upon you?
Do! Excuse me, Father, in a moment. Well, remember my instructions, Phipps. Into that room.
What name, madam?
Is Lord Goring not here? I was told he was at home.
Lord Goring is engaged at present with Lord Caversham, madam.
How very filial.
Lord Goring told me to ask you to wait in the drawing room for him. His lordship will come to you there.
Lord Goring expects me?
Yes, madam.
Are you quite sure?
His lordship told me that if a lady called, I was to ask her to wait in the drawing room for him. His lordship's directions on the subject were very precise.
How very thoughtful of him. To expect the unexpected shows a thoroughly modern intellect. Oh, how dreary a bachelor's drawing room looks. I shall have to alter all this. No, I don't care for that lamp, which is far too glaring. Light some candles.
Certainly, madam.
I hope the candles have very becoming shades.
We have had no complaints about them, madam, as yet.
I wonder what woman he is waiting for tonight. It would be so wonderful to catch him. Men always look so silly when they're caught. And they are always being caught. What an interesting room. What an interesting picture. Wonder what his correspondence is like. What an uninteresting correspondence. Bills and cards, debts and dowagers. Who on earth writes to him on pink paper? I recognize that handwriting. It is Gertrude Chiltern's. I remember it perfectly. The 10 Commandments in every stroke of the pen and the moral law all over the page. How I detest that woman. Wonder what she's writing to him about. Something horrid about me, I suppose. I want you, I trust you, I'm coming to you, Gertrude. I want you, I trust you, I am coming to you.
The candles in the drawing room are lit, madam, as you directed.
Thank you.
I trust the shades will be to your liking, madam. They are the most becoming we have. They're the same as his lordship uses when he is dressing for dinner.
Then I'm sure they will be perfectly right.
Thank you, madam.
My dear father, if I am to get married, surely you will allow me to choose the time, the place, and the person, particularly the person.
That is a matter for me, sir. You would probably make a very poor choice. It is I who should be consulted, not you. There is property at stake. This is not a matter for affection. Affection comes later on in married life.
Yes, Father. In married life, affection comes when people thoroughly dislike each other, Father. That's it.
Certainly. I mean, certainly not, sir. You are behaving very foolishly tonight. What I am saying, sir, is that marriage is a matter for common sense.
Oh, but women who have common sense are so curiously plain, Father. Of course, I only talk from hearsay.
No woman, plain or pretty, has any common sense at all, sir. Common sense is the privilege of our sex.
Yes, Father, and we men are so self-sacrificing, we never use it, do we?
I use it, sir. I use nothing else.
So my mother tells me.
It is the secret of your mother's happiness. Oh, you are heartless, sir. Very heartless.
I hope not, Father.
Oh, good evening, Arthur. What a spot of luck meeting you on the doorstep. Your servant had told me you were not at home. How extraordinary.
Well, the fact is, Robert, I'm horribly busy tonight, and I gave orders I was not at home to anyone. Even my father received a comparatively cold reception. He complained of a draft over the time.
You must be home for me, Arthur. You're my only friend. My wife has discovered everything.
Oh, I could have guessed as much.
Really? How?
Oh, merely by something in the expression of your face as you came in. Who told her?
Mrs. Cheveley herself. And now the woman that I love knows that I sold, like a common huckster, the secret that had been entrusted to me as a gentleman. Oh, thank heaven poor Lord Radley died without knowing that I betrayed him. I would to God that I had died before I had been so tempted, before I had fallen so low.
You've heard nothing from Vienna yet in answer to your wire.
I received word from the first secretary at 8 o'clock tonight.
Well?
Absolutely nothing is known against her. On the contrary, she occupies a rather high position in society. It is sort of an open secret that Baron Arnheim left her the greater portion of his immense fortune. Beyond that, I can learn nothing.
She doesn't turn out to be a spy, then?
No, spies are useless nowadays. Their profession is over. The newspapers do their work instead.
And thunderingly well they do it.
Arthur, I am parched with thirst. May I ring for something, some hot and seltzer?
Certainly. Let me.
Thanks. I don't know what to do, Arthur. I don't know what to do, and you are my only friend. But what a friend you are. The one friend I can trust. I can trust you completely, can't I?
Of course, my dear Robert, of course. Oh, Phipps, hot and seltzer.
Yes, my lord.
And Phipps, you will excuse me for a moment, Robert. I would like to give some directions to my servant.
Of course.
Phipps, when that lady calls, tell her that I'm not expected home this evening. Tell her that I've been suddenly called out of town. You understand?
The lady is in the drawing room, my lord. You told me to show her into the drawing room, my lord.
You did perfectly right. Oh, what a mess I'm in. No, I think I shall get through it. I know. I'll give her a lecture. Through the door. Awkward thing to manage, though.
Arthur, tell me what I should do.
Robert, you love your wife, don't you?
I love her more than anything in the world. I used to think ambition the great thing. It is not. Love is the great thing in the world. There's only love, and I love her. But there's a wide gulf between us now. She has found me out, Arthur. She has found me out.
Perhaps she has some folly or indiscretion in her past, that she should not forgive your sin.
My wife? Never. She knows nothing of weakness or temptation. I am of clay, like other men. She stands apart, as good women do. I was brutal to her this evening. But I suppose when sinners talk to saints, they are brutal always. I said things to her that were hideously true on my side, from my standpoint, from the standpoint of men, but let us not talk of that.
Your wife will forgive you. Perhaps she is forgiving you at this moment. She loves you, Robert. Why should she not forgive?
God grant it. God grants it. But there is something else I have to tell you, Arthur.
Hock and seltzer?
Oh, thank you.
Robert, is your carriage here?
No, I walked from the club.
So Robert will take my cab, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
You don't mind my sending you away, do you, Robert?
Arthur, you must let me stay for 5 minutes. I've made up my mind of what I am to do tonight at the house. The debate on the Argentine Canal is to begin at 11, and What was that?
Nothing.
I heard a chair fall in the other room. Someone has been listening.
But no, there's no one there.
There is someone. There are lights in the room and the door is ajar. Someone has been listening to every secret of my life. Arthur, what does this mean?
Robert, you are excited, unnerved. I tell you, there is no one in that room. Sit down, Robert.
Do you give me your word there's no one there?
Yes.
Your word of honor?
Yes.
Arthur, let me see for myself.
No.
If there's no one there, why should I not look? Let me know that no eavesdropper has heard my life secret.
For God's sakes, don't! There is someone there. Someone whom you must not see.
I thought so.
I forbid you to enter that room.
Stand back. My life is at stake, and I do not care who is there. I will know who it is to whom I have told my secret and my shame.
Great heavens. His own wife.
What explanation have you to give me for the presence of that woman here?
Robert, that woman is guiltless of all offense towards you. I swear to you on my honor.
She is a vile and infamous thing.
Don't say that, Robert. It was for your sake she came here. It was to try and save you she came here. She loves you and no one else, Robert.
You are mad. What have I to do with her intrigues with you? Let her remain your mistress. You are well suited to each other. She, corrupt and shameful. You, false as a friend, treacherous as an enemy even.
It's not true, Robert. Before heaven, it is not true. In her presence and in yours, I will explain all.
Let me pass, sir. You have lied enough upon your word of honor.
Good evening, Lord Goring.
Good heavens! Mrs. Cheveley! May I ask what you were doing in my drawing room?
Merely listening. I have a perfect passion for listening through keyholes. One always hears the most wonderful things through them.
Doesn't that sound rather like tempting Providence?
I think Providence can resist temptation by this time.
I'm glad you've called. I'm going to give you some good advice.
Oh, pray don't. One should never give a woman anything she can't wear in the evening.
I see you are quite as willful as you used to be.
Far more. I've greatly improved. I've had more experience.
Too much experience is a dangerous thing. Pray, have a cigarette. Half the pretty women in London smoke cigarettes.
Thanks.
Personally, I prefer the other half.
I never smoke. My dressmaker wouldn't like it. And a woman's first duty is to her dressmaker. But the second duty is no one has as yet discovered.
You have come to sell me Robert Chiltern's letter, haven't you?
To offer it to you on conditions. How did you guess that?
Because you haven't mentioned the subject yet. Have you got it with you?
Oh, no. A well-made dress has no pockets.
What is your price for it?
Oh, how absurdly English you are. The English think that a checkbook can solve every problem in life. My dear Arthur, I have very much more money than you, and quite as much as Robert Chiltern has got hold of. Money is not what I want.
What do you want, Mrs. Cheever?
Why don't you call me Laura?
I don't like the name.
You used to adore it.
Yes, that's why.
Arthur, you loved me once.
Yes.
And you asked me to be your wife.
That was the natural result of my loving you.
And you threw me over because you saw, or said you saw, poor old Lord Mortlake trying to have a violent flirtation with me in the conservatory at Tenby.
I was under the impression that my lawyer settled that matter with you on certain terms dictated by yourself.
At the time I was poor, you were rich.
Yes, that's why you pretended to love me.
Poor old Lord Mortlake. We only had two topics of conversation, his gout and his wife. I can never tell which of the two he was talking about. He used the most horrible language about them both. Well, you were silly, Arthur. Why, Lord Mortlake was never anything more to me than one of those tedious amusements one has at an English country house on an English country Sunday. I don't think anyone morally responsible for what they do at an English country house.
Yes. I know lots of people who think that.
Arthur, I loved you.
My dear Mrs. Cheever, you are far too clever to know anything about love.
I did love you, and you loved me. And love is a very wonderful thing. I suppose that when a man has once loved a woman, he will do anything for her, except continue to love her.
Yes. Except that.
I'm tired of living abroad. I want to come back to London. I want to have a charming house here. Besides, I have arrived at the romantic phase. When I saw you last night at the Chilterns, I knew you were the only person I've ever loved, cared for, if I've ever cared for anybody. And so, on the morning of the day you marry me, I will give you Robert Chiltern's letter. That is my offer. I will give it to you now, if you will promise to marry me.
Now.
Tomorrow.
I should make you a very bad husband.
I don't mind bad husbands. I've had two. They amused me immensely.
You mean you amused yourself immensely, don't you?
Do you think it is quite charming of you to be so rude to a woman in your own house?
In the case of a very fascinating woman, sex is a challenge, not a defense, Mrs. Cheever.
I suppose that is meant for a compliment. My dear Arthur, women are never disarmed by compliments. Men always are. That is the difference between the two sexes.
Women are never disarmed by anything as far as I know them.
So you are going to allow your greatest friend, Robert Chiltern, to be sacrificed rather than to marry someone who really has considerable attractions left. I would have thought you would have risen to some great height of self-sacrifice. I think you should. And then you could spend the rest of your life contemplating your own perfections.
Oh, I do that as it is. And self-sacrifice is a thing that should be put down by law. It is so demoralizing to the people for whom one sacrifices oneself.
As if anything could demoralize Robert Chiltern. You forget. I know his real character.
What you know about him is not his real character. It was an act of folly done in his youth. Shameful, I admit. Dishonorable, I admit. Unworthy of him, I admit. And therefore not his true character.
How you men stand up for each other.
How you women warred against each other.
I only war against one woman. Against Gertrude Chiltern. I hate her. I hate her now more than ever.
Because you have brought a real tragedy into her life, I suppose.
There is only one real tragedy in a woman's life. That her past is always her lover, and her future invariably her husband.
Lady Chiltern knows nothing of the kind of life to which you are alluding.
Well, Arthur, I suppose this romantic interview may be regarded as at an end. You admit it was romantic, don't you? But the privilege of becoming your wife, I was ready to sacrifice a great prize. The climax of my diplomatic career. You decline, very well. If Robert Chiltern doesn't uphold my Argentine scheme, I expose him. Voila tout.
You mustn't do that. It would be vile, horrible, infamous.
Oh, don't use big words. They mean so little. It is a commercial transaction, that is all. There's no use mixing sentimentality up into it. I offer to sell Robert Chiltern a certain thing. If he won't pay me my price, he will pay the world a greater price. There is no more to be said. I must go. Goodbye. Will you not shake hands?
With you? No. Your transaction may pass as a loathsome commercial transaction in a loathsome commercial age, but you seem to have forgotten that you came here tonight to talk of love. You whose lips desecrated the word love. You to whom the thing is a book closely seen, went this afternoon to the house of one of the most noble and gentle women in the world, to try and degrade her husband in her eyes, to try and kill her love for him, put poison in her heart, bitterness in her life, to break her idol, and it may be to spoil her soul. For that, I cannot forgive you. That was horrible. For that there can be no forgiveness.
Arthur, you are unjust to me. Believe me, you are quite unjust to me. I didn't go to taunt Gertrude at all. I called with Lady Markby simply to see if an ornament, a jewel of mine, had been found at the Chilterns. I called, a little out of malice, if you like, but really to see if a diamond brooch of mine had been found at the Chilterns. That was the origin of the whole thing.
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby?
Yes, how do you know?
Because it is found. In point of fact, I found it myself. I stupidly forgot to tell the butlers about it as I was leaving. It is, in this jewelry box.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have it back. It was a present.
Won't you wear it?
Yes, if you will pin it in. Why do you put it on as a bracelet? I never knew it could be worn as a bracelet.
Really?
No, it looks very well on me as a bracelet, doesn't it?
Yes. Much better than when I saw it last.
Really? When did you see it last?
Oh, 10 years ago on Mary Berkshire, from whom you stole it.
What do you mean?
I mean that you stole that ornament from my cousin, Mary Berkshire, to whom I gave it when she was married. Suspicion fell on a wretched servant who was sent away in disgrace. I recognized it last night. I determined to say nothing about it until I had found the thief. I have found the thief now, and I have heard her own confession.
It is not true.
But you know it's true. Why, thief is written across your face at this moment.
I will deny the entire affair from beginning to end. I will say I have never seen this wretched thing. It has never been in my possession.
The thing about stealing a thing, Mrs. Cheatley, is that one never knows how wonderful the thing one steals is. You can't get that bracelet off unless you know where the spring is. And I see you don't know where the spring is. It is rather difficult to find.
You brute! You coward!
Oh, don't use such big words. They mean so little.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to ring my servant. Admirable servant always comes at the moment one rings. When he comes, I will tell him to fetch the police.
The police? What for?
Police are here to prosecute you tomorrow. That's what the Berkshires will do.
Don't do that. I will do anything you want. Anything in the world you want.
Give me Robert Chiltern's letter.
Stop, let me have time to think.
Give me Robert Chiltern's letter.
I haven't got it with me. I'll give it to you tomorrow.
No, you're lying. Give it to me at once. This is it?
Yes.
My dear Mrs. Cheveley, for so well-dressed a woman, you have moments of admirable common sense. I congratulate you.
Thank you. Will you help me on with my cloak?
Yes, with pleasure.
Thank you. I'm never going to try to harm Robert Chiltern again.
Fortunately, you shan't have the chance, Mrs. Cheveley.
Well, even if I could, I wouldn't. On the contrary, I'm going to do him a great service.
I am delighted to hear it. It is a reformation.
Yes, I can't stand so honourable a gentleman, so upright an English gentleman, being so shamefully deceived, and so...
Well...
It seems that somehow Gertrude Chiltern's dying speech and confession has strayed into my pocket.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm going to send to Robert Chiltern the love letter his wife wrote to you tonight.
Love letter?
I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you, Gertrude.
You wretched woman! Must you always be thieving? Give me back that letter. I'll take it from you by force. You shall not leave my rooms till I have got it.
Lord Goring merely rang that you should show me out. Good night, Lord Goring.
It is a great nuisance. There is no one in this house to talk to, and I am full of interesting information. I feel like the latest edition of something or other.
Sir Robert is still at the Foreign Office, my lord.
Lady Chiltern not down yet.
Her ladyship has not yet left her room. Miss Chiltern has just come in from riding.
Oh, that's something.
Lord Caversham has been waiting some time in the library for Sir Robert. I told him that your lordship was here.
Oh, thank you. Would you kindly tell him that I've gone?
I shall do so, my lord.
Really, I don't want to see my father. 3 days running. I hope to goodness he won't come up. It's a great deal too much excitement for any son. Father should be neither seen nor heard. It is the only proper basis for family life. Mothers are different. Mothers are darling.
Well, sir, what are you doing here? No, wasting your time as usual.
My dear father, when one pays one a visit, it is for the purpose of wasting other people's time, not one's own.
Have you been thinking at all about what we discussed last night?
I have been thinking about nothing else.
Oh, engaged to be married yet?
Not yet, but I hope to be before lunchtime.
Oh, you may have until dinner time if it would be at all convenient.
Think so, but I'd rather be engaged before lunch.
Never know when you're serious or not.
Neither do I, Father.
Oh, I suppose you have read the Times this morning?
The Times? No, certainly not.
Do you mean to say you have not read the Times' leading article on Robert Chiltern's career?
Great heavens, no. What does it say?
What should it say, sir? Everything complimentary, of course. Chiltern's speech last night on this Argentine canal scheme was the greatest piece of oratory ever delivered in the House since Canning.
Well, I never heard of Canning, never wanted to, but did Chiltern uphold the scheme?
Uphold it, sir? How little you know him. Well, he denounced it roundly, and the whole system of modern political finance. Oh, this is the turning point in his career, as the Times points out. You really should read this article, sir. As Sir Robert Chiltern, a most rising of our young statesmen, brilliant orator, unblemished career, well-known integrity of character, represents what is best in English public life. Noble contrast to the lax morality so common among foreign politicians. They will never say that of you, sir.
I sincerely hope not, Father. But I'm delighted at what you tell me about Robert. It shows he's got pluck.
He's got more than pluck, sir. He has got genius.
I prefer pluck. It's not so common as genius is nowadays.
I wish you would go into Parliament.
My dear Father, only people who look dull ever get into the House of Commons, and only people who are dull ever succeed there.
Well, why don't you try to do something useful in life?
I am far too young.
Oh, I hate this affectation of youth, sir. It's a great deal too prevalent nowadays.
Youth isn't an affectation. Youth is an art.
Why don't you propose to that pretty Miss Chiltern?
I am of a very nervous disposition, Father, especially in the morning.
Oh, I don't suppose there's the slightest chance of her accepting you.
I don't know how the betting stands today.
If she did accept you, she'd be the prettiest fool in England.
Oh, that's just what I should like to marry. A thoroughly sensible wife would reduce me to a condition of absolute idiocy in less than 6 months.
You don't deserve her, sir.
My dear Father, if we men married the women we deserve, we should have a very bad time of it.
Oh. Good afternoon, Lord Caversham. I hope Lady Caversham's quite well.
Oh, Lady Caversham is as usual. As usual.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
And Lady Caversham's bonnets. Are they at all better?
Oh, they have had a serious relapse, I am sorry to say.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
I hope an operation will not be necessary.
If there is, we shall have to give Lady Caversham a narcotic. Otherwise, she would never consent to having a feather touched.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
Oh, are you here? Of course you understand that after breaking your appointment, I am never going to speak to you again.
Don't say such a thing. You are the one person in London I would really like to have listen to me.
Lord Goring, I never believe a single word either you or I say to each other.
Well, you are quite right, my dear, quite right. As far as he is concerned, that is, yes.
Do you think you could possibly make your son behave a little better occasionally? Just as a change?
I am sorry to say that I have no influence at all over my son. Oh, I wish I had, my dear. If I had, I would know what I would make him do.
I'm afraid he has one of those terribly weak natures that are not susceptible to influence.
He is heartless. Yeah, very heartless.
It appears I am a little in the way here.
It is very good for you to be in the way and to know what people say behind your back.
Oh, I don't at all like to know what people say about me behind my back. It makes me far too conceited.
Well, after that, Miss Mabel, I fear I must bid you good morning.
I hope you're not going to leave me all alone here with Lord Goring, especially at such an early hour in the day.
Well, I cannot take him with me to Downing Street. I am afraid it is not the Prime Minister's day for seeing the unemployed.
People who don't keep their appointments in the park are horrid.
Detestable.
I'm glad you admit it. But I wish you wouldn't look so pleased about it.
I can't help it. I always look pleased when I'm with you.
Then, I suppose it is my duty to remain with you?
Of course it is.
Well, my duty is something I never do. On principle. It always depresses me. So I'm afraid I must leave you.
Oh, please don't, Miss Mabel. I have something very particular to say to you.
Oh! Is it a proposal?
Why, yes, it is. I am bound to say it is.
I'm so glad. That makes the second today.
The second today? What conceited ass has been impertinent enough to propose to you before I had proposed to you?
Tommy Trafford, of course. It is one of Tommy's days for proposing. He always proposes on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the season.
You didn't accept him, I hope?
I make it a rule never to accept Tommy. That is why he goes on proposing. Of
course, as you didn't turn up this morning, I very nearly said yes. It would have been an excellent lesson both for him and for you if I had. It would have taught you both better manners.
Oh, bother Tommy Trafford. Tommy is a silly little arse. I love you.
I know. And I think you might have mentioned it before. I'm sure I've given you heaps of opportunities.
Mabel, be serious, please. Be serious.
That is the sort of thing a man always says to a girl before he has been married to her. He never says it afterwards.
Mabel, I have just told you that I love you. Can't you love me a little in return?
You silly Arthur. If you knew anything about anything, which you don't, you would know that I adore you. Everyone in London knows it, except you. It is a public scandal the way I adore you. I've been going about for the past 6 months telling the whole of society that I adore you. I wonder you consent to have anything to say to me. I've no character left at all. At least, I feel so happy I'm quite sure I have no character left at all.
Dear, you know, I was awfully afraid of being refused.
But you've never been refused yet by anyone, have you, Arthur? I can't imagine anyone ever refusing you.
Of course, I'm not nearly good enough for you, Mabel.
I'm so glad, darling. I was afraid you were.
And I'm a little over 30.
Dear! You look weeks younger than that.
How delightful of you to say so. And it's only fair to tell you frankly that I am fearfully extravagant.
So am I, Arthur. So you're sure to agree. Now I must go and see Gertrude.
Must you really?
Yes.
Then do tell her that I have something particular to say to her. I have been waiting here all morning to talk to either her or Robert.
Do you mean to say that you didn't come here expressly to propose to me?
No. That was a flash of genius.
Your first.
My last.
I'm delighted to hear it. Now don't stir. I will be back in 5 minutes. And don't fall into any temptations while I'm gone.
My dear Mabel, while you are away, there are none. It makes me horribly dependent on you.
Good morning, dear. How pretty you are looking.
How pale you are looking, Gertrude. It is most becoming.
Good morning, Lord Goring.
Good morning, Lady Chiltern.
I shall be in the conservatory, under the second palm tree on the left.
Second palm tree on the left?
Yes, the usual palm tree.
Lady Chiltern, I have a certain amount of very good news to tell you. Last night, Mrs. Cheveley gave me up Robert's letter, and I burned it. Robert is safe.
Safe? Oh, I am so glad. What a good friend you are to him, to us.
There is only one person now who can be said to be in any danger.
Who is that?
Yourself.
I? In danger? What do you mean?
Danger is too great a word. It is a word I should not have used, but I must admit I have something to tell you that may distress you. It terribly distresses me. Yesterday evening, you wrote me a beautiful, womanly letter. Mrs. Cheveley got possession of that letter and stole it from my rooms.
But what use is it to her? Why should she not have it?
Lady Chiltern, I will be quite frank with you. Mrs. Cheveley puts a certain construction on that letter and proposes to send it to your husband.
But what construction could she put on it? Oh, not that. If I, in trouble, wanting your help, trusting you, propose to come to you, for help and assistance that you may advise me. Oh, are there women so horrible as that? Tell me what happened.
Mrs. Cheveley was concealed in a room adjoining my library without my knowledge. I thought that the person who was in that room to see me was yourself. Robert came in unexpectedly. A chair, something fell in the room. He forced his way in and he discovered her. We had a terrible scene. I still thought it was you. He left me in anger. At the end of everything, Mrs. Cheveley got possession of your letter. She stole it. When or how, I don't know.
At what hour did this happen?
At 10:30, and now I propose that we tell Robert the whole thing at once.
You want me to tell Robert that the woman you expected was not Mrs. Cheveley but myself? That it was I, whom you thought was concealed in a room in your house at 10:30 at night? You want me to tell him that?
I think it is better he knows the exact truth.
I couldn't. I couldn't.
May I do it?
No.
You are wrong, Lady Chiltern.
No. The letter must be intercepted, that is all. But how am I to do it? Letters arrive for him at every moment of the day. His secretaries just open them and hand them to him. Oh, tell me what to do.
Be calm, Lady Chiltern, and answer the questions I'm going to put to you. You said his secretaries open his letters.
Yes.
Who's with him today? Mr. Trafford, isn't it?
No, Mr. Montfort, I think.
Your letter was written on pink paper. He could recognize it without reading it, couldn't he? By the color.
I suppose so.
Is he in the house now?
Yes.
Then I will go and see him myself and tell him that a certain letter written on pink paper is to be forwarded to Robert today, and that at all costs it must not reach him. Oh. Robert is coming up the stairs with the letter in his hand. It has reached him already.
I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you. Gertrude. My love, is this true? Do you indeed want me and trust me? If so, it was for me to come to you, not for you to write of coming to me. Gertrude, this letter of yours makes me feel that nothing that the world may do can harm me now. You want me.
Yes.
You trust me, Gertrude.
Yes.
Why did you not add that you loved me?
Because I love you.
Gertrude, you don't know how I feel. When Montfort passed me your letter across the table, he had opened it by mistake, I suppose, without looking at the envelope, and I read it. I did not care what shame or disgrace was in store for me. I only thought that you loved me still.
There is no public disgrace or dishonor in store for you. Mrs. Cheveley has handed over to Lord Goring the possession of the letter, and he has destroyed it.
Are you sure of this?
Yes, Lord Goring just told me.
Then I am safe. What a wonderful thing to be safe. For 2 days I have been in terror. I am safe now. How did Arthur destroy my letter?
He burned it.
Oh, I wish I had seen that one sin of my past burned to ash before me. How many men in modern life would love to see that past burned to white ashes? Is Arthur still here?
Yes, he's in the conservatory.
I am so glad I made that speech last night in the house. So very glad indeed. I made it thinking that public disgrace might have been the result. It has not been so.
No, public honor has been the result.
I think so. I fear so. Almost, for although I am safe from detection, although every proof against me has been destroyed, I suppose, Gertrude, I suppose I should retire from public life.
Yes, Robert. You should do that. It is your duty to do that.
It is much to surrender.
No, it will be much to gain.
And you would be happy living alone with me somewhere in the country, away from London, away from public life. You would have no regrets.
None, Robert.
And what of your ambition for me? You used to be ambitious for me.
I have none now, but that we two may love each other. It was your ambition that led you astray, Robert. Let us not talk of ambition.
My dear Arthur, I must thank you for all that you have done for me. I don't know how I can repay you.
I'll tell you, my dear fellow. At the present moment, under the usual palm tree, in the conservatory, there is a...
Lord Caversham!
Oh, that admirable father of mine really has a habit of showing up at the wrong moment. It is very heartless up here. Very heartless indeed.
Good morning, Lady Chiltern. Congratulations to you, Chiltern, on that brilliant speech last night. I have just come from the Prime Minister, and you are to have the vacant seat in the cabinet.
A seat in the cabinet?
Yes, I have the Prime Minister's letter here.
A seat in the cabinet?
Yes, certainly, and you well deserve it, sir. Oh, you have have got what we most want in public life nowadays. High character, high moral tone, high principles. Everything you have not got, sir, and never will have.
I don't like principles, Father. I prefer prejudices.
I cannot accept this offer, Lord Caversham. I've made up my mind to decline it.
Decline it?
It is my intention to retire at once from public life.
Decline a seat in the cabinet? And retire from public... I've never heard such damn nonsense in the whole course of my existence. And furthermore, I do beg your pardon, Lady Chiltern. Chiltern, I do beg your pardon. Don't grin like that, sir.
No, Father.
Mrs. Chiltern, you're a reasonable woman. You're the most reasonable woman in London. The most reasonable woman I know. Could you please prevent your husband from taking such... Would you kindly do that, Lady Chiltern?
I think my husband right in his determination, Lord Caversham. I approve of it.
Approve of it? Oh, great heavens.
I admire him for it. I admire him immensely for it. I have never admired him so much before. You will go and write to the Prime Minister now, won't you?
I suppose I'd better write at once. Such offers are not repeated. You'll excuse me for a moment, Lord Caversham.
What is the matter with this family? Something wrong up here? Idiocy? Hereditary too. Both of them, wife as well as husband. Oh, so sad. So very sad. And they're not an old family. Oh, I can't understand it.
It is not idiocy, Father. I assure you that.
Well, then what is it, sir?
It is what is called nowadays a high moral tone, Father. That's all.
Can't stand these newfangled names. Same thing as we used to call idiocy 50 years ago. No, shan't stay in this house any longer.
No, Father, come in here, Father. Our third palm tree on the left. The usual palm tree.
What, sir?
Oh, I beg your pardon, my dear Father. The conservatory, Father. I forgot. The conservatory. There is someone in there I want you to talk to.
About what, sir?
About me, Father.
Not a subject on which much eloquence is possible.
No, Father. But the lady is like me. She doesn't much care for eloquence in others. She thinks it a little loud. Lady Chiltern, why are you playing Mrs. Cheveley's cards?
I don't understand.
Mrs. Cheveley made an attempt to ruin your husband, either to drive him from public life or to make him adopt a dishonorable position. From the latter tragedy, you saved him. The former, you are now thrusting on him.
Lord Goring.
Why should you do him the wrong he tried to do and failed?
Lord Goring.
Lady Chiltern, allow me. Last night, you wrote me a letter in which you said you trusted me and you wanted my help. Now is the time when you really want my help. Now is the time when you have got to trust me. Trust my counsel and judgment. You love Rory. Do you want to kill his love for you? No. What sort of existence would he have if you rob him from the fruits of his ambition? If you take him from the splendor of a great political career? If you close the doors of public life against him? He who has been made for triumph and success. Why should you scourge him with rods for a sin done in his youth before he knew you, before he knew himself? Don't make any terrible mistake, Lady Chiltern.
But it is my husband himself who wishes to retire from public life. He feels it is his duty. It was he who first said so.
Rather than lose your love, Robert would do anything. Wreck his whole career, as he is on the brink of doing now. Take my advice, Lady Chiltern. This sacrifice is too great. Do not accept such a sacrifice. We men and women are not made to accept such sacrifices from each other. We're not worthy of them. Besides, Robert has been punished enough.
We have both been punished. I set him up too high.
Do not for that reason then set him down now too low. If he has fallen from his altar, do not thrust him into the mire. Your husband's life is at this moment in your hands. Your husband's love is in your hands. Don't mar both for him.
Gertrude, here's the draft of my letter. Shall I read it to you?
Let me see it.
Gertrude, what are you doing?
I have just learnt this, and much with it from Lord Goring. I will not ruin your life for you, nor have you spoil it as a sacrifice to me. A useless sacrifice.
Gertrude.
You can forget, and I forgive.
Gertrude, my wife. Arthur, it seems I am always to be in your debt.
No, your debt is not to me, Robert. It is to Lady Chiltern.
I owe you much. And now, tell me what it is you were going to ask me just now as Lord Caversham came in.
Robert, you are your sister's guardian, and I would like to ask your permission for my marriage with her.
I am so glad. I am so glad.
Thank you, Lady Chiltern.
My sister to be your wife?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Arthur. The thing is quite out of the question. I have to think of Mabel's future happiness, and I don't think it would be safe in your hands. And I cannot have her sacrificed.
Sacrificed?
Yes, utterly sacrificed. A loveless marriage is horrible. But a thing worse than a loveless marriage is a marriage in which there is love, but on one side only. Devotion, but on one side only. Faith, on one side only. And in which of the two hearts, one is sure to be broken.
But I love Mabel. No other woman has any place in my life.
Robert, if they love each other, why should they not be married?
Arthur cannot give Mabel the love she deserves.
What reason have you for saying that?
Do you really require me to tell you?
Of course I do.
As you choose. When I called upon you yesterday evening, I found Mrs. Cheveley concealed in your rooms. It was between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. That is all I wish to say on the matter. Your relations with her have, as I told you last night, nothing whatsoever to do with me. I know you were engaged to be married to her once. The fascination she exercised over you seems to have returned. You spoke to me last night of her as a woman pure and stainless, a woman you respected and honored. That may be so, but I cannot give my sister's life into your hands. It would be wrong of me to do so, and unjust, infamously unjust to her.
I have nothing more to say.
Robert, it was not Mrs. Cheveley whom Lord Goring expected last night.
Not Mrs. Cheveley, but who was it?
Lady Chiltern?
It was your own wife, Robert.
Oh.
Yesterday afternoon, Lord Goring said that if I was ever in trouble, I could come to him for help, as he is our oldest and best friend. Later on, after that terrible scene in this room, I wrote to him saying that I trusted him, that I wanted him. Yes, that letter. I didn't go to Lord Goring's after all. I felt that it was from ourselves alone that help had come. Pride made me think that. Mrs. Cheveley went. She stole the letter and sent it anonymously to you so that you should think. So that you should. Robert, I cannot tell you what she wished you to think.
What? Had I fallen so low in your eyes that you thought that even for a moment I could have doubted your goodness? Arthur, you may go to Mabel at once. You have my warmest wishes.
Well, I hope she hasn't changed her mind yet. It's been nearly 20 minutes since I saw her last.
Lord Goring, I think your father's conversation is much more improving than yours. I'm only going to talk to Lord Caversham in the future, and always under the usual palm tree.
Darling.
What does this mean, sir? You cannot say that this beautiful, charming young lady has been so foolish as to accept you.
Yes, Father. And Chiltern's accepted a seat in the cabinet.
Ah, I am really quite delighted, sir. Oh, congratulations, sir. Oh, if this country doesn't go to the dogs or the radicals, we shall have you Prime Minister one day.
Luncheon is on the table, my lady.
You'll stop to luncheon, Lord Caversham, won't you?
Certainly, certainly. Oh, and I'll drive you down to Downing Street afterwards, sir. Oh, you have a brilliant future ahead of you, sir. A great future. Which is more than I can say for you, sir. I'm afraid your career will have to be entirely, domestic.
Yes, Father. I prefer domestic.
And if you don't make this woman an ideal husband, I'll cut you off with a shilling.
An ideal husband? I don't think I should like that at all. Sounds like something in the next world.
Well, what would you like him to be then, dear?
He can be what he chooses. All I want is to be a real wife to him.
Upon my soul, there's a great deal of common sense in that, Lady Chiltern. Yes, indeed.
Are you not coming in, Robert?
Gertrude, is it love you feel for me, or is it pity merely?
It is love, Robert. Love and only love.